Hi, my name is Mai Harrison, and I am talking to Andy Brewerton. Hi, Andy.
Hiya, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing?
We're keeping safe and trying hard.
You are a teacher in a local school, and you're also a representative of the National Education Union. Could you tell us a little bit about your roles?
Yeah, I teach at Vickerstown School and I teach across the whole of the primary age range from 5 to 11, as well as being the district president of the Cumbria NEU.
So the Prime Minister had an address on Sunday night, and he talked a little bit about what he thought would happen with schools in the next few weeks. Could you explain those in simple terms for us about what he actually said?
I can explain what he says. I'm not sure I can explain the detail behind it. Basically, what he said was that children of primary ages from reception year 1 and year 6 could possibly begin to return to schools from June the 1st, which seems to offer more questions than answers. He talks about them coming back as a staged thing, but there wasn't an awful lot of detail given, which means that at the moment, people are very unsure as to what's going to happen.
Well, what sort of guidance or support has the Department for Education provided schools?
Well, as of today, they've just started to bring out some extra guidance, and basically it talks about a phased return for the early year settings and for the year 6 children, but also with plans that if it is feasible to get all primary school children back to school for a month before the summer holidays. However, as of yet, they've not actually said how that would be feasible or possible.
What does the union have a response to the Prime Minister's announcement last night?
Well, they were actually they've actually been quite outspoken in the way that they've said that it's just not feasible at the moment, and it would be reckless to be having children going back into schools without any guidance, without any help. Over the past 6 weeks, the union has asked the government, the Prime Minister, the Secretary of State for Education, to provide the evidence and the modelling that they've used that have got them to the decision that it would be okay for reception year 1 and year 6 to go back. 3 times they've asked them and they have refused to answer. There's been no answer so far. So as far as the scientific evidence and modelling is, the union don't have a clue about where they've come from. And so in that respect, they've decided that they want 5 tests that need to be passed before they believe it's safe for children to return and teachers to return to school.
Well, let's say that all the conditions are met for the Prime Minister's checklist for June the 1st. Could you walk us through what a day would be like if Vickerstown, for example, opened for reception year 1 and year 6? What would it look like from drop off of the children, what the classrooms would look like, and then things like common time like dinner and playtime?
I mean, it's very difficult, and without central government giving any advice, there's going to be lots of different ways. But one particular way that people have been talking about doing this is to create little bubbles within school where you would have small amounts of children coming into school. They would come in at different times of the day. There would be a staggered start and a staggered end. They would obviously need to be washing their hands regularly. They would have to be having the temperature taken. They would be in maybe groups of 4 to 6 or 8 even, depending on the size of the classroom. They would have their own desk, their own area, maybe with a tray on it that they could keep all of their bits and pieces in them. We'd be maybe looking at specific entrances and exits for those children to get in and out of the school. you would be looking at staggered dinner times, staggered play times, so that they didn't meet anybody else who was in the school, so that these classrooms then become little bubbles in which the children can exist. And hopefully, if there is an infection, that either it's minimised and kept within that one bubble, or if it does spread further, then obviously there'll have to be other things put in place for dealing with that. Again, your children, if they do go back, aren't necessarily going to be taught by their normal class teachers, because to cover, say, a class of 25, you're looking at maybe 5 different members of staff being in school and 5 different areas for those children to learn in. So the education that they will be receiving isn't going to be what they would normally get anyway.
Or do you think that local schools will be prepared for, as you say, sort of changing the school environment to accommodate those 3 classes?
I think all teachers, like everyone, wants a return to normality as soon as possible and wants to get the children back into school. But it's very, very difficult when, say, like at our school, it would involve 70 children just in those three classes. If there was 10 children in each class, then it would be 7 classrooms. However, our classrooms aren't probably big enough to take 10 children. So then you're looking at 8 classrooms, 9 classrooms to put these things, all needing a member of staff to look after them. It would be really, really difficult. I think the schools will do go out of their way to try and find ways of doing it, but I do know that it will cause a lot of difficulty and a lot of angst and a lot of worry amongst the head teachers and amongst the other members of staff.
Do you think that might be balanced out by what the students would get from being back into education, however fragmented it might be? Possibly,
but it was not going to be the same. They're going to be back within a classroom setting where they are not in their normal room, possibly. They're not with necessarily all their friends. They have to try and socially distance. Getting 5, 6, 7-year-olds to socially distance is a nightmare. They don't understand. And to try and get them to understand is nigh impossible as well. So you're looking at creating a fairly false environment. Yes, they might get something from being back with a few friends, but I would think it would be better waiting until they could be back together again as a group before. Sorry about that. Before they decide to. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there. They need to be back as a whole group, and that would be more beneficial to them.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with us today, and hopefully there'll be even more guidance coming in the next few weeks before that June the 1st target date.
All right. Thank you very much.